Hello, and welcome back to our tutorial series on Node.js and Express.js. In the last video, we installed Node and NPM on our computer to make sure we have what we need to get up and running. So in this video, we're going to create a very simple Node Express project from scratch so that we can understand the underlying pieces for every Node Express application. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to open the terminal. And just to make sure everything's working on your end, do a quick version check for both Node and NPM. Make sure you have valid outputs on either one of these. And once you've confirmed that, let's head over to, I'm going to head over to my desktop, but obviously you can go wherever you do your work. And let's create our first project. So I'm going to create a directory and let's call it first project. And so here it is right here. And then I'm going to cd into the first project. So I'm now currently inside the first project directory, and let's create our first project. So the way we do that for a Node project is we do npm init, and this will create our first Node project. Now what's going to happen is it's going to ask me a series of questions about my project. For example, the name, the version number, description, things of that sort. For now, we're just going to go with the defaults, so we can just press enter all the way through. And then finally press OK. And you'll see here what happened was it created a file called package.json. And the package.json file is kind of like the central point of every Node application. It's where the project's sort of details, configuration details are laid out. So in this case, those details are the name, excuse me, the name, the version, description, etc. Excuse me. So what we want to do is we want to add more configuration to this project. Obviously, this is not really a project, it's just a file. So what we want to do first is we want to add more dependencies to our project so that we can add more functionality. So the way we do that using Node and NPM is we use the package manager NPM to install dependencies. So the first dependency, and for this video the only dependency we're going to install, is Express, the web framework. So here is how you install a dependency inside of a project, and then we do -- save like that. So you may remember in the intro video I said there are two ways you can install libraries, locally or globally. What we're doing here is we're installing the library locally, so that this library Express, the framework, will be installed locally in this project only and not globally on machines. Let's go ahead and do that. And you'll see here a couple things happen. You see this folder pop up. We've got a new package.lock.json file, package.lock.json file. So this is what's the most important thing to note here is the Node modules directory is your dependencies folder. This is where all your dependencies end up inside of a project, inside of Node, inside of a Node project. So if I open this up, I'm going to see a few dependencies, quite a few. And one of them is going to be Express, as you see right here. You may be wondering, we only installed Express. Why are there all these other folders, all these other dependencies? That's because Express itself has several sub-dependencies, which were also installed inside the Node modules. So the Express dependency itself has clearly quite a few of its own dependencies which were installed as well. So the important takeaway here is that the Node modules folder is where the dependencies are stored. Another thing to note is if we open up the project in our text editor, I'm going to use Sublime, you'll see in the package.json there is a new entry called dependencies where we have Express listed, and that's because we did the npm install right here, and that will add the library to the dependencies list in the package.json. So remember, the package.json is kind of the project's like table of contents. It shows everything the project currently uses and configurations. So we have everything we need to create our first Node Express project. So let's go ahead and do that. We need to create a JavaScript file to run the project. So if you look here on line 5, it says the main entry point is index.js. So we should create that. So go ahead in your directory and let's create the index.js file, which is now right here. And here's where we will create our server, our Node Express server. So first thing we need to do is we need to import the Express framework. So let's do that. Okay, and this is how we import a library from the Node module. This is exactly how you do it. So if we want to use one of the Node modules, this is how it would go. And let's create our Express application. So that would be, and we instantiate it like that. It's basically just a function using Express. And then what we need to do is set up request handlers or a request handler so that we can respond to an incoming request from the website. So let's do that right now. So app. Okay, so a couple things right here. We are setting up a get response handler or get handler. Get is a type of HTTP request. It's the most common type. It's what browsers send out, get requests. So when you visit a website like google.com, you are sending a get request to the Google servers. This string argument here is just slash indicating for the home page. So we're indicating that for the home page, please handle the response the following way. Now we did not configure the response yet. There's one more argument here we have to pass in, which is going to be a function argument. So it's a function, and the function argument itself has 3 of its own arguments, which is rec, which is request, res, which is response, and next. Now we won't be worrying about the next for a while, so I'm just leaving it in there to be thorough. But what matters are the request and the response. And inside the response object is where we can actually configure the response to send back whatever we want. So in this case, we're going to tell the response object to send back a hello message so that we can clearly see whether or not it worked. And so for now, this is good enough. This is a valid response. So now what we need to do is connect the app to the server by doing app.listen. And then inside the listen function, we pass in what's called a port number. Don't worry too much about port numbers for now. Just understand that the common port numbers in local development environments are usually 3000, 5000, 8000, or 8080. So these are typical port numbers, 8000, 8080. But between these, it doesn't really matter which one you use. They're all kind of the same. So now what we want to do is run the server using Node. So we go back to our terminal and we make sure you're in the root of the directory and we do node and then the file name index.js. Technically we can just do index and that's it because it's a JavaScript runtime, so the JS is implicit. But if you want to be really thorough, you can just do index.js. It's all kind of the same. So now we're running the server, and so we can go to our browser now and check port 3000 or localhost 3000. So if we do localhost 3000, we see hello, and that means it worked. So we have created our first Node Express application and had it tested the response by making sure we see this hello string in the browser, which is this response right here. So to turn off the server, we go back here and we do Control-C, and that will turn the server off. Now, if you're on Windows, I believe it asks you if you're sure you want to do it, so just press yes. And then the server will be off. So if I go back to localhost 3000, nothing will work. It'll crash. So that's it. So this is how you create a Node Express project from scratch. I'm going to do a few more things in the next video, and then to get through the architecture, to describe the architecture. But this is how a Node Express project is created from the bottom up. And the important takeaways here are what the package.json means, how to read this, the node modules, what's going on there, and how to install a node module. So those are the important takeaways. So hopefully you got all this working, and that's it. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.